In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create what we call a scrollable bar. As you can see here, when I hover over it, our cursor changes, but also if I keep on clicking on it, you can see we can go from one side to the other and back. But of course, if I keep on clicking here, it will understand when it should stop and not go further. So this is a very advanced topic. So let's start to explore how to do this now. So let's start to explore how to create these buttons that allow us to scroll the chart to the left and right in Chart.js. So the first thing what we need is we need to go to chartjs3.com getting started, or this specific link, which you can also find in the description box, to get our default code. So I'm going to copy this entire chunk of code here. And if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this specific video that explains it all. So then what I will do is I'll just put it in here, and as I did that, I will cut out this title and put it in there. Save this, refresh, and now as you can see, we have this nice bar chart. So what I want to do is I want to extend the amount of data points we have here. So we're going to scroll down here, and let's say our labels here, we're going to comma, or this, and then put in here 3 more weeks, so we have a total of 28 data points here. So then here this times 3 as well, so 1, 2, and 3. Alright. So once I did this, I'll just ignore this one, but what I want to do here is at least to give some different numbers so you can easily spot the differences. 6, and this would be 9, 9, 9, and this will be, let's say 6, 6, and 6. So if I save this, refresh, you can see we have some different data here, and that's important for us. So later on, we can easily compare. And what I want to do is here, just make this maybe 4.5, 4.5, and 4.5. There we are. You have different here. This one is just that one, and there we are. Alright, so now what I want to do is, because you can see here, this is all the data points, but I want to restrict that. I only want to show 7 data points at a time. So what I will do is I will scroll down here, then in the scales, we're going to work on the X scales. And in the X scales, we're going to say here a minimum of our starting point, which would be 0, and this 0 or minimum of 0 refers to the Monday here, or index 0. So then we have here a max. You say here index number 6. So if I save this, make sure you put a comma here down, save, refresh, you can see here now we only have the first week. So if I would change it, let's say we make this 8, if I save that, you should see now we get the 4.5 here, which would be the second week, or some segments of the second week. So this is very important for us, because with this we can start to play around with those buttons to move it to the left and right. So now we have our most important item here, and I guess it's time now to start working on the most complicated part, which is to create these buttons and eventually to make sure that we trigger a functionality on it that will understand that we click on that specific button. So first of all, comma, and then what we're going to say here is we're going to give this a plugin name. So this is plugins, and then we can say here, let's say move chart. Very simple, nothing fancy. I will copy this, and then in here, we're going to say here the move chart plugin block, and then within here we're going to say constant move chart equals. I'm going to say ID move chart, although we will not be using that one, so it doesn't matter so much, but it's related to the options. And then next what we're going to do here is we need to consider a few items. So basically what I'm going to do here first is to draw the buttons. So I'm going to say after draw. So after everything has been drawn, I want to put the buttons on the very top, or maybe even, I guess, if the tooltip would be an issue, we could say here after dataset draw. So we can check later on if that would be an issue, yes or no. So then what I want to do is I want to get here 3 arguments. Basically we have the chart, we have the arcs, and then we have here the plugin options. And again, in this case, at least specifically for this one, for the after draw, we will not be using this and this, because this here, well, this is going to events that will come later on, but this one is related to the ID, giving some special features within the options. Anyway, doesn't matter, we want to be using that. So then what I want to do here is I want what we call a object destructure. So these 3 are all objects, but I only need this object here of chart. So I'm going to say a constant equal. I'm going to say a chart, because what does it really mean is that basically this chart has what we call also more values within. So if I do a console log, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. So let me hide that. If I save this and refresh, open up Developer tab, you can see here now it starts to load multiple times, and you can see here, this is basically the chart object, and it consists of everything. And what I want to do here now is just want to grab this one. So you have the chart area, we have even the CTX, that's as well what we need. So I'm going to grab that. So instead of then later on saying chart.chart area, and then for example I need to have the left position, and I have to say dot left. Instead of doing this, I just want to say only left, and that left will be instant reference to this specific location. To do that, we need to have, of course, the object destructuring. That's the way to do it. So I'm going to say here the following. Constant, and I'm going to say here CTX, that's the one that's important. We need as well the chart area, and more specifically within the chart area I need the left, right, top, bottom, width, and height. Most likely I will only use a few items over here and not all of them, but I just have to put them all here for myself, so it saves some time and it's easy for us. So if ever we would need them, we can reference to any one of those, but probably later on we can remove the ones we don't need. So then we have this here. So what I need to do now is I need to create these buttons here. So let's draw the button. So to do that, I'm going to say here CTX, which refers to the canvas, which is basically this one here. That's this specific item. If I click on this and hover over here, you can see here it understands it's the canvas with my chart ID. So it knows which canvas we're pinpointing, and that's the canvas I need to draw on. So let's start to make that shape here. So I'm going to say here very simple, ctx.begin path. And in this begin path, it's just basically the starting point of the shape. And then I'm going to say here, I want to have a line width. So ctx.line width, because I want to make a circle. And I want to make this circle position here somewhere, but I want to make sure that the circle has a line width of, or a border line of 3 pixels. So then what I want to do here, I want to give it also a background color. So I'm going to say a CTX, we can say here, a border color, because we have here the border width, but of course no border color. That is the stroke style. So the stroke style is, let's grab the official Chart.js colors. So it's RGBA, and then we're going to say here 102, 102, 102, and then here the alpha value of 0.5. There we are. Next, what I want to do is I want to give it a background color. So I'm just going to say here, I will fill up the background color with a fill style, and that will be equal to white. So once I have this, what I want to do next is I want to draw the circle. So for that, I'm going to say a ctx.arc. And this, if you want to understand this more in depth, I have a whole series about how to understand the Canvas API, and I covered one with arc. It goes very deep. So I will go here just quickly, but if you want to know the full item of all of these items here already, I have a whole Canvas series for that. So then what I want to do here, I want to have here the X and the Y value, then eventually here would be the radius, and then we have here the angle or angle start, angle S, and then we have the angle end, and finally we have here counterclockwise, counterclock TW, I guess. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're going to set this on false. No need for counterclockwise. Then let's start to work on these here. So the X and Y will be based on whatever we have here. And more specifically, we can just grab this one and we can just say here, if I want to have the first shape here, we need to calculate what's the left. So this is the chart area line of left. So that's the center point. So we're going to just say left. And then what I want to do here, once we are on the left, I want to figure out what's the position here. So for that, I need to know basically what is the height of this plus whatever here is the top. So we're going to have the height divided by 2 plus top will get us in the center. So for that, we have here the height. So we can just say here the Y will be height divided by 2 plus top pixels. Once we have this, we have the radius here, where it will be, let's say, 15 pixels of a circle size. So for the angle, I need to calculate this one. So I'm going to use here a quick trick here for this. I'm going to say here the constant angle will be math dot pi. Basically, a half circle is 1 pi. So having two circles, or sorry, having a full circle is 2 pi. So what I want to do is, if the half circle is 1 pi, and if we are very familiar with degree, one full circle has 360 degrees. So half circle would have 180 degrees. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to say here, multiply by 0, and the other angle here will make a full circle 360. So that makes a complete circle here. Alright, so now we have this here. Finally, going to say ctx dot stroke to draw the item. And then next what I want to do here is ctx dot fill to draw the background color. And finally, I'm going to say here ctx dot close path. If I save this, refresh, there we are. As you can see here, we are now having nicely this circle here, exactly in the center of our chart area. Beautiful. So we have to later on make another one here, but what I want to do now is I want to make this arrow, or the chevron arrow, go pointing to the left. So let's start to do that one. So to do this, we're still within this part here. We're going to draw another item. So for this, I'm going to say again here, ctx dot begin path, indicating we're going to start again fresh. We close the path here, so this will be not impacted in any way with our chevron arrow. So then, let me just put in here the chevron arrow left. That's this one for now. And then what I want to do here, I'm going to use again the same line thickness of 3 pixels. And then what I want to do here is I want to grab a color. So I'm going to grab this color, but then after I'm going to assign a specific color for that. And in this case, let's grab this red color here, which is the one here, but I will make this solid. So I'm going to put it in there, alright, semicolon there, convert this alpha value into 1. So it's a solid red color. Next, what I want to do here then is to start drawing the item. To draw a line, we basically need to put in the pixel coordinates, the x and y, as a starting point, and then we have to go basically going here. Basically, we are somewhere here, and then we have to go midway down or halfway down here, and then after we have to go back. So it's like an arrow, so we need to indicate the exact coordinates with that. So what I'm going to do now is here, I'm going to say ctx dot move to, which would indicate what is our starting position of our line. So our starting position of our line, so we have to see what would be this. Well, we can probably say here left. So this is an x and y coordinate. So the first one would be left, and then once we have this, we have to put in here the height. So what we could say here is we can almost grab this one here. I'm going to grab this and put that in here for now. We need to later on adjust the coordinates, but don't worry about it. I'm going to show you later step by step how. So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to ctx and line 2. And line 2 would be the first drawing point. This is basically the starting point, which will be eventually here. But if I draw a line, then you can start to see exactly how this looks like. So I'm going to put this line here, semicolon, and then what I'm going to say here, ctx dot stroke to draw the line, and then I'm going to say here, ctx dot close path. Save it. Alright, if I refresh here, surprisingly nothing is drawn here, so let's see what is going on here. Do we have a color? Yes, we have this, we have all of that. Alright, so let me just quickly check what's missing. Of course, so I realized what is missing is basically this. We said our starting point is here, and the line would start and end at the starting point. So that's why there's absolutely nothing being drawn. So if I would change this, and let's say we're going to put the left, we do -5 pixels. Save this, refresh, there we are. So now we have that, and we are here really at the center. What we need to do is we need to push it up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, this left here will be still on the, well, maybe we have to change it later on, but that will be alright. Or maybe what we can do here, we do +5. I save that, let's see what happens. They have a longer line, beautiful. So then what I need to do here is I need to push this up. So I can say here negative, and let's say -7 or 7.5, because our radius is a 7.5 or 15 pixels, so that should be fine. So what I want to do is I want to have this, and then maybe here we say +7.5. We'll do 7.5 here. Not really. I don't like that really that much. So what I want to do next is we have this. I'll just copy this, put it in here, because what we need to do is also a line down. So we're going to say move here. We do again the same here, but this will be just a plus. But then we will, from here, we draw a line here. If I refresh, there we are. And alright, that looks quite acceptable. And it looks very perfect. So now we have this done. So what I want to do now is this we can now duplicate. And for that, I'm going to use a constructor. So there's a constructor, and you can also do it in a function. But there's a difference between a constructor and a function. If you create a function where you just draw an item, what will happen, it's like you draw on a piece of paper, you print it on the paper, and you cannot remove it anymore. So if you do a constructor, what you can do is basically, or what it does is, instead of drawing on the paper, it's like you have a separate paper, you cut out that circle, and you just put it on top of the paper. And that would mean that you could move that left and right without damaging anything else on that paper or on that canvas. And that's basically what we need eventually. Although I'm not very expert right now on this, but I will cover that in the near future more in depth. So I'm going to create a version of it so we have this, because that will be in the near future will be very important for special hover effects and giving it color. So what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, well, let's put this up. I'm just going to put it between here. I'm going to say the following. I'm going to create a class, circle, and then let's say circle chevron. Chevron. And then what I'm going to do here, this class will be a constructor. And this constructor, this part currently is not really necessary, but I'm just going to put in the x and y1. And although it will have no functionality, I'm giving it a different number, or x and y1, to avoid if later on, if we would be using the x variable for something else. Later on with a mouse click, the x and y coordinates are becoming important for us. So that's why I'm giving this a different name. So then what I will say here, well, basically here, this could be the x and y, although we don't need anything here, so maybe we could even comment this out. But we'll see if that would break our item. Then what I want to do here is I want to draw. So what I'm going to draw now is the following. I'm going to draw all of this. Everything we have here. We'll cut this out. We'll put it in here. And then just paste that all in nicely. Alright. So once we did this, what we can do now is we can start to indicate, to draw individually this specific circle chevron. And this is left, but I don't want to make this solid left and then later on have a separate code for right. I want them together, left and right, depending on the formula. So we're going to work on that afterwards, because all of this can be soft coded. It's a more dynamic way. So what I'm going to do here now is, I'm going to just say here enter, I'm going to say here let, I'm going to say here draw circle left, which is the first item I want to draw, which is new. And what I'm going to do now is basically create a new object, which is this specific class object or constructor. So within here, once I did this, I'm going to say here draw circle. I'll just give it a name of draw circle left, which is basically this here, and then we say dot draw, which is the command to draw whatever we have in here. So then what I want to do here, and this is very important, we're going to put eventually here the coordinates, and these coordinates will be basically the CTX. We have the x1 or the x value, the y1, and then we have here as well, most likely we will work here with the pixels. So I'm going to say already pixels. Save. We can refresh here now. Alright, so it gives us an error, so let's see what's going on. See if I'm missing something. So if I open up the developer tab, x1 is not defined. Alright, fair enough. This is not yet defined. Of course, so why is this? It assumes that this is probably a variable. Of course, this is no variable, so I'm going to just put in here 10, let's just say 1 and 1. If I save this, refresh, now it works and we have this one. So what we could do here as well is to create another one. And this will be eventually our right chevron circle. And then we say here right, copy that, put it in here. However, this one of course is not yet done, because let's soft code this. We need this. What we just did here, we need to start soft coding this. So how do we soft code this? Well, the first thing is what we're going to do here is we're going to say here the CTX, or basically what we just tried to do there, we have to put it in here. Now we're going to say x1, y1, comma, and here the pixel. So now we have this. We can put in this here. So let's start to work on what we need to do. So the first thing is the X position is basically the left here, as you can see here. On this one, yes, that's on this one, that one, and that one. So this left should be X1, 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 X1. And then we have this, then I will say here the X1 will be left. So once I did that, if I save this now and refresh, there we are. It's still nothing really happens, but now I'll show you this. We're going to activate the next one, and this one will be, instead of left, will be right. If I save this now, as you can see, we get here something. And here we get something interesting as well. We're being clipped off, which is correct because as you can see here, the canvas ends at exactly this point here. So what we need to do is we need to adjust something there as well. So let's do that one immediately. So we go here in the options, we're going to say here, we're going to say here layout, and in the layout we're going to say here padding. I'm going to give the padding here right. Now how many padding to the right do we need to give? Remember our radius was 15, so there will be 15 pixels plus 15 pixels, and then you have this borderline of 3 pixels, so that's about 18 pixels. So I'm going to say the right will be 18 pixels additional, comma, save, refresh. There we are. So now we are exactly there, and maybe we could reduce a few pixels, but it's alright. I will accept this tiny margin of pixels additional. So there we are. So now we have this. This one's working, but of course it's not pointing in the right direction. So let's start to work on that. So what I want to do here, we have this, we have the next one. I guess here the Y value is not even necessary here, the Y1. So I will just remove that one. I don't see any value for that. So I'm going to remove that, because it's already here. So if I save this, refresh, still works fine. So now let's move that to the other side. So that's the pixel amount. How many pixels? Well, you can see here we have plus and minus of 5. So what we need to do here is we probably have to adjust that one. So what we can do here, let's see, I guess what we can say here, maybe 5 for this, and then what I will do here is a -5 for here, exactly the opposite. So what will happen in this, because in mathematics plus and plus will be positive, but if it's plus minus, it will be considered negative. So it's exactly the opposite. So now we have this, and then probably our pixels will work beautifully. So we're going to just replace the number 5 with the pixels, save that, and there we are. So now we have the two items pointing in the right direction. So this is the first part. Of course, we're not done yet because we still have a lot more to do. We still have to make the click function, and of course what I want to do here is to hover effect, so it will look at least a bit nicer. So it will be intuitively that we can click on this. So to do that, we have here the after draw. So now I'm going down here. We're going to do another one, and this is another item, which is basically called the after event. So after the event, we want to do here something. We're going to chart.arguments. So what is the event we're talking about here? Well, basically, if we're going to use a hover event, or specifically when I hover over this area here, I want to have what we call the mouse move. We're moving within this item here, and then the cursor should change into a pointer cursor instead of a default mouse cursor. So to do that, we have this one, we have all of this here, and then we have to do again some of the same item that we did here previously. Again, an object destructuring. You can put this in here, but now I also need to have the canvas as an item, because we want to make sure that we can trigger the click and hover events, or specifically here is the hover event for the canvas. So once I have this, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this canvas, and we're going to start to create an add event listener to trigger the click event. So the mouse move event, that's the correct term. Add event listener, and then what I want to do here is the following: is the mouse move, and in here I'm going to say this event will be triggered, and then we're going to track that specific event. So if I do a console log, console log of the event, you will see that it will show us a nice trigger. Oh, or somehow it doesn't. Why? No comma here. You can see here, number 90. Forgot about this. Make sure you have a comma. Save. There we are. So now if I hover over it, add event listener, make sure you spell it correctly. Listener. Save. There we are. So what happens is we're going to get here all of these values here. And what I need is specifically the information of the coordinates of our hover effect that we hover within this area here. At that moment, I want to trigger a change of the cursor of the mouse. So in Chart.js, they have luckily already these arguments here, and now this becomes functional for us, because what we need here is the following. I'm going to say here constant x equals args. That's basically this object here. Then we're going to say a dot event dot x. What this really does is it gives us the exact coordinate of our chart, or when we're hovering on our chart. So I'm going to say here this y, do a trigger the y item. And if I say, console log, I'm going to say x, and then concatenation y, we should see both of these nicely. I'm going to hide this, save that, refresh. Hover, you can see here now, we get, probably it's hard to spot here, and let's say here, like that. We get the x and y coordinates here nicely. So this is the x and this is the y coordinates. If I go down, you should get a higher coordinate here of it. And you can see it just takes some time because it's quite heavy and probably it does way too much of the movement. But that's alright. We're going to remove this console log. No need for that. But what we know now is the official coordinates. And this is very important for us. Because why? If I save this and let's refresh it now. Why? Because now we can just figure out what is the coordinate exactly in here. And I'm going to make this a simple square shape where we hover over it, so that even if we are on the corner here, that somehow will trigger, but that's acceptable. And to make it more advanced, we can do it with eventually with the constructor here, but it just requires a different approach, which I will cover probably in the future. So what I'm going to do now is the following. Let's see. We're going to now figure out where are we, and are we within the exact position similar to what we have here, or in the rectangle, or basically within here. If I hover over it, am I within here on the x and y coordinates? So what I'm going to say here, just simply an if statement, and I'm going to say if x is larger or equal to what exactly? This item here, the left. So let's say the left. What I'm going to do here, because we have this here and it's a radius, so there's a 15. So basically it's 15, it's 30 pixels by 30 pixels. 30 pixels here, 30 pixels up and down. So that's really the coordinate. So I'm going to say here minus 15. Why? Because this is the left center. Minus 15, that's where we're going to go. And then, if that is the case, and we can just copy this, put it in there, and say if x is smaller than left plus 15, and let's just show you first of how this works. If that is the case, what I want to then is I want to say canvas dot style dot cursor equal the pointer. So we're just basically doing here a CSS style that we use JavaScript for that. And then else, if that is not the case, I want to say put it back on default. So I'm going to say here cursor default. We only have the x value now, so let's see if this works. If I refresh here and go here, there we are. At the moment we're out of it, but right now, everywhere up, we didn't filter up the vertical level, only horizontally. So horizontally, this works. So what I'm going to do now is the next one. We can say here, we're just going to extend that and we say if y is larger equal to, and then what we have to get here is we have to figure out what is the item position here. That's the height divided by 2 plus top. And then of course minus 15 again, what we did here. But basically we have here height. Let's copy this one here. We say this, and then plus 15 pixels. And if that is the case, or another one, it would be if the y, let's copy all of this here, and I guess this should be minus 50, sorry, this should be positive 50, and this should be smaller than. Save this, refresh. So if I hover over now, here nothing works, but then here, there we are. So although we are here in the corner, but I will just accept that minor item here. So you can see here now this works. So if this is working, what I want to do here now is the following, which is, let's do here a console log. Then we can say, okay, save, refresh, there we are. Alright, so this works. So then now we have clearly understood, or Canvas understands our positioning here. So once we have this one, what I need to do as well, I need to do the same one here, but then for the other item. So what we could do here is, I can just copy this, because we need to do it now for the other position here. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to just say here, another this, and I'm going to say here, if else, so another if else. I'm going to say if else, or sorry, this is not if else, it's else if, of course. Else if this is the case, then what I need to do here, remember, all we have to do is to change it, because the difference was here right, and here was left. So I'm going to say here, this will be right, exactly what we had here up. So right, right. Alright, so if I save this now, refresh, refresh. Somehow it doesn't work. Alright. Alright, so I figured out the reason why it didn't work is, of course, of my mistake here. Or I think, is this if else, there we are, and then of course copy this, put in there, save that, refresh. Now we have this, and now we have this one. So now we have the next part here. So we have this intuitive item here. So the last part is, of course, to create what we call the clickable item. So to do that, we're going to start working on next part, which is a separate function outside of our plugin block. And the reason why is that if you do it within, there's a loop effect here, and that creates a big problem. So what I want to do is I'm going to scroll down here all at the bottom. We're going to work here now. And in here, I'm going to call this our function. This is our new function here. Function, and let's say this function is move, scroll, something like that. So within here, to do this, what I need to do first is I need to make sure that if I do a console log here, say okay. If I refresh it and I just do something and click on anything here, nothing works. It doesn't trigger. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that this function is being recognized by the canvas when we click on it. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to say my chart, which is basically the reference to this here. Then I'm going to say here ctx.onClick equals or trigger move scroll functionality. So once I save this now and refresh here, maybe I should click on it. Oh, for some reason it doesn't. Move scroll on click my chart. Let me double check. It somehow works here. Fascinating, but it doesn't. It's not really triggering correctly. So let me double check this. What's going on? All right. For now, I would just say I'll just leave it. Doesn't matter so much. Although I was expecting that when we click on it, it should be triggered. So for some reason, it just triggers unload. And I can't explain it for now, but that's alright. Doesn't matter. Let's start to focus on the function itself, so we can start to create the function. So what I'm going to do here is the following. We have this function here, and we're going to do again what we call an object destructuring here. Very similar to this, I can just copy this one, scroll down here, put it in here. But here's the thing: we cannot use chart here, but what we can use is the my chart, because that is just the same reference. So I'm going to say my chart. There we are. So then the next thing is to start to, because what we want to do is on click it should trigger, and then secondly, once it triggers, it must do a few items. Or basically it must understand when we click on this one, we want to go back And if you click on this, we want to go forward. So that's what we have to explore now. So how will we do that? Well, the first thing what we need to do is we need to make sure that we can get the coordinates of the click. So I'm going to say here the following. I'm going to say here, let's see here, is it the canvas? I'm going to make a, what do you call it, the add event listener. That's the right term. So canvas and then add event listener, and then if you're wondering where did we get the canvas, I forgot that one here, put that in there. So that needs to be in here as well. The add event listener, and this add event listener should be triggered again on click, and then comma, we have an event. So basically, and then later on we have to really check this one here, and when we click on it, at that very moment, I want to make sure that we check where are we clicking. Are we clicking within this area here or in that area here? Yes or no. If so, we should move the chart, or it should have a scrolling effect. So let's see here, event, then we have to make sure that this here is of course a function arrow expression. And then within here, we're going to say the following. We want to extract the coordinates of our click. So I'm going to say here, constant rectangle equals canvas dot get bounding client rect. What this truly means is, and this should be bounding, what this means is we're going to get the coordinates specifically of this here. If you remember here up, we had this very easy way of doing it with the arguments. That one here. Sadly enough, we cannot get this one here now. So we have to make our own version of it within the bounding rect. Although it's quite straightforward as well, very similar to what we did. We're going to say a constant x equals event, which is basically this event here, and then we say dot client x minus rectangle, which is this, dot left. So why are we doing this? Basically what we're doing is we're going to calculate where we click on, but the way how it's being calculated our click, it doesn't calculate only the canvas, it will calculate the entire screen. And we don't want that. We only want to know basically when we click here and the difference between that from the screen here. So it will deduct this space here, how much we are going to the left or the right. It's quite technical item to get eventually the difference and then the amount of pixels of that. So that's basically what we're doing here. And we're going to say here, we're going to do the same here, but then on the Y value. This here, of course, from top, because we're going to do vertical. Because the Y value or the Y axis is based on the vertical. So once we do this, we do a console log, and let's see X, do another console log, and this is Y. Let's save that, refresh, click. Alright, so for some reason, yes, it didn't want to work, but now it works nicely. But what I need is basically this click here. I want to click on this item, and if we are within the coordinates, and these coordinates we already have, if we look here up, we have this if statement. If we are within the coordinates, then I want to do something specific. So let's start to look at that. Now, so what we have here is the following. I'm going to say here if. And this if statement here will help us now because we have the X and Y coordinates as well. Scroll up here and let's see where it is. First one, let's copy all of this, scroll down and put it in here. So if all of these coordinates are, if we are within that coordinate, in that case, what I want to do is the following. Let's see here, this is all correct. So then, if this is the case, what I'm going to do is, we're going to update the chart. So I'm going to say here, my chart. So we're clicking right now here on the left. That will mean that we're going backwards. And then maybe we should first do the other one, but it's alright. So, it makes more sense. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just go forward first because that's the one we should do first. Alright, so we have this. So here, my chart. Let me say dot options. Why? Because for my chart, I go to the options, and then here I want to go to scales x min or max. That's the one I want to pinpoint. Options dot scales dot x dot min equals, this can copy this. Then what I want to do is here plus 7. So I'm going to increase it. So the moment I click on here, I want to increase our minimum here with 7. So then, of course, what I want to do the same is I want to increase our maximum with 7. So if you're saying why maximum 7, well, max is this here. So once I did this, then I'm going to say here my chart.update, save, refresh. Now I click on this. There we are. Click again, click, click. All right. So you can see here, the moment we start to click, eventually we're going too far. So you only have one item, and I don't want that. So what happens is I want to make sure that the moment I click, but if I cannot click further, I want to have it blocked off. So then what I need to do is the following. I'm going to say here again, the following is make an if statement. And this if statement is very straightforward. I'm going to say if, and I'm going to say here my chart dot. And then we can say here the options, basically just this. Let's copy all of this, put it in here. But then what I want to do here, instead of the max, I want to say here, let's see, if my chart, let me think how we're going to do that. Oh, of course. So what we're going to do is, let me explain first. This one should be max, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare if our max value, because we're doing +7 every time, will be equal or bigger, sorry, it will be bigger or equal to our, let's go up here, our data.datasets.data length, the length of this array. In that case, I want to have a fixed amount. So that's what we're going to do here. Let's go back down. We say will be equal to, say, data.datasets, and this is index 0.data.length. If this is true, in that case, I want to change our values. I'm going to say here the max value and the min value will be different. So here the min value will be, and I guess what we could do is here grab the data -7, and secondly the max value will be data.length. So it's the absolute full value. That's it. So once we did this, we put a semicolon, save that, refresh. Alright, so if I click, 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 click again, as you can see here, now it blocks it off. It will not click go ahead further or zoom in further because it understands now when it's the limit. So once we have this, what I can do is I can just duplicate this, but I can just probably move that one. Well, I'll do that later on. I'm just going to copy that. Oh, put it in here. Let's delete this console logs here. Just keep it clean. Make this left. Make this left. And then here we have exactly the same, except here is the difference. Here the logic is slightly different. So what we need to do here is when the minimum value will be equal or lower, because what we're going to do here, we're going to deduct it every time it's 7, is lower or equal to 0. We can just hard code the 0 because it's just lower. That's the index number. In that case, I want to say here index data. Let's see what we can do here. We can say here this will be number 0. We'll hard code this one, and this one will be number 6. Why? We have always +7. There's 7 values at a time, and an array calculates from 0 base, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's 7 items. All right, so we have that here, and you can see here this is the redundant update. I'm going to move that out. Just say here, then we have only one time this. Save that, refresh. Go back here, nothing happens. It understands it. Go back here, go back there, or go there. Let's go all to the end. All right, let's go all there, and there we are. So now we basically have created our item, and that's how we can create this scrollable buttons for our chart. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you also want to do some other items that is also quite interactive, in that case I recommend you to check out this one as well, which creates clickable lines or horizontal lines on a chart, and which works very similar to what we did so far in our video right now. And so this is another way of doing it and playing more advanced or adding more advanced features in Chart.js.